My name is Jada Irving, and this is Mr. Rudolph Johnson III. Today is June 23rd, and we are at the Neighborhood House Association.
Hi, Jada.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, tell us about your father and the Urban League.
Well, the thoughts that I have about my dad stem back to the early 1980s. I can remember when my father first got hired by the Urban League as their president and CEO. And by the way, he came by way of the Neighborhood House Association to take that job. I was in high school at the time, and I used to go to work with him on occasion and sit on his couch, much like you're sitting on my couch, and literally watch him conduct business from his desk. And that was my first exposure to not only the Urban League, but to the things he was doing in the community, which really inspired me as a community advocate.
How did your father's involvement with the civil rights movement inspire you?
Well, I was inspired from the very beginning. You know, my dad was from this community. He grew up here in San Diego. I'm a third generation San Diegan, and he gave most of his life and career to building community here in San Diego and working for the underdog, those that were the worst off in San Diego, ensuring that they had a fair shake in life in terms of employment, opportunities, education, and housing. And I kind of followed that lead and really plunged myself into doing some of the same things here at the Neighborhood House.
In all the work that your father did, what do you think were his greatest struggles?
I would probably say, you know, balancing running a major organization here in San Diego. The minority population at that time was not great. The numbers of African Americans were very small compared to where the numbers are today. The Hispanic population has grown considerably in my generation versus when he took over. So I'm sure it was a struggle at first, ensuring that he represented the voice of the minority community. Number two, the politics at the time. Really inserting himself to local politics probably was a challenge. And then the third piece, which is always a challenge for every CEO, is really raising the resources, money and human resources that he needed to run a well-oiled machine. At the time, I didn't understand how tough that was. If he were sitting here with me today, I would be able to speak to him about me understanding how tough that is.
How has your father's involvement affected your life?
It had a tremendous effect on me. I didn't know what I wanted to do until I came back home from doing my undergrad at Texas Southern University. And when I came back home, really watched and learned from my dad's legacy and his commitment to community, and really tried to take all my skill sets, knowledge, and ability that I had gained as a young professional and really throw myself into building a better community and building a better agency. Now, never in a million years did I think I would get my start at the Neighborhood House Association, but it was divine order, and here I am, and I owe a lot to what my dad did in terms of blazing that trail for me as a kid.
What are you passionate about, and how does this drive your work with the Neighborhood House?
Well, I'm very passionate about next generation leadership. I mean, that's kind of my number one thing. I want to ensure that we're opening windows of opportunities for the next generation that will eventually take over and lead not just this agency, but all of the agencies here in San Diego. And I think it's my responsibility to kind of pass that baton or build a bridge, if it were, just like the bridge my dad built for me back in the early 80s. I'm building a bridge for someone in the mid-2000s, and I understand that that's my duty, and I take it very, very seriously. So that's what I'm passionate about. And in terms of my vision for this organization, excellence. You know, I want to provide an excellent level of service to and for this community.
When thinking about civil rights, what do you think the changes have been when thinking about your father's time and your time?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, that's a great question. I don't think anyone has the, you know, patent answer for that. I think what you'll hear around the country, not just San Diego, you know, that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think we've made progress in a lot of areas. but I think there's a long way to go. And I think the issues are becoming more complicated and complex, and that's why I think you see, a number of individuals rallying around a bunch of issues versus the African American community, the Hispanic community, the gay and lesbian community, having their own individual set of issues that they're fighting for. I think you see, them coalescing around each other's issues. I think that's the bright spot with this new generation. And so I'm hoping that's going to drive us into a better America tomorrow. That's what I'm banking on.
Who may have been a source of inspiration for your father?
Good question. My dad has since passed. I miss him tremendously. I never really asked him that question point blank, but just looking at his style, one of his mentors was the late Dr. Howard Carey, who preceded me in this position. He actually gave my dad his opportunity to be his deputy, and soon after that he became president and CEO of the San Diego Urban League. So he'd probably say Dr. Howard Carey, probably say some of his professors at San Diego State University. Obviously his family members. My grandmother was a big influence in his life, his sisters. So I think there are local, heroes and local mentors that he kind of took his lead from and really gave him his energy to come back and do great things locally. And definitely, my dad was one of my heroes. And, I've come full circle largely because of what I saw him do right here in the San Diego community. So I owe a lot to my father. I think this community owes a lot to my dad. And when you're working at these kind of agencies, you're really an unsung hero. You're not going to get a lot of fanfare, but history is going to tell the story. I think history is telling the story about my dad's leadership right now.
Is there anything else you would like us to know about your father?
He was a great man. He gave his life to this business, and I think he'd be proud today, not just because I'm his son leading this agency, but because I think he left San Diego a better place than what he found it as a child.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson, and that will conclude our interview.
Thank you. Appreciate it.